everybody, Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star Mopars.com. Sunday night in the shop, just about 9 o'clock, not quite as hot today, so I'm trying to make good use of my time. And I thought now would be a good time to take a look at what is to me a new product from a relatively new company. Gonna go ahead and throw this down. That is Hot Rod Fuel Hose right there. Very familiar with that font. I used it myself, so that's a good sign, I would hope. But this is essentially a deal where a guy was building a truck and he was having a nightmare of a time with AN fittings, and it seemed like the prices were too high. So he kind of took it upon himself to start sourcing stuff, checking with manufacturers, trying to get some different color combinations. If you ever get tired of the red and the blue and the stainless, right? And that's sort of where all this was born. Now, the PTFE stuff, that's mainly what they're going to deal in. They do have some other options. But in terms of their fittings and the hose that they make available to you, it will all be PTFE. So what I'm doing is trying this out. Now, typically, something like this would not be much fuel line. You wouldn't be able to do a whole lot of anything on a car with this. But what this is actually for is for the truck. We need to have our crossover attached to the fuel rails, right? Just kind of circle back on the end of each fuel log. And that's what we're going to do. So we don't need much line at all for that. I don't even know, 12, 20 inches, somewhere in that range, I would guesstimate would cover it. The smallest piece that they will sell is 6 feet. So that's what this is. The price point for 6 feet of -6, important to stress that it's -6 as well, is going to be $35.97. Again, this stuff is expensive. AN, braided AN, PTFE. Pick your poison. Check around. You're going to pay a pretty penny for it. And this, again, I've never dealt with PTFE. The big advantage to that, we're going to come in. I will have, kind of like a how-to installation and everything for you. But that does not look like your typical AN braided line, which shockingly, I don't think I have a piece on the bench for the first time in what seems like forever. But typically, you're going to have, your stainless braid or your black nylon braid over the stainless. And yes, there's a stainless braid in there. You can probably see it shimmering. But that right there is unlike what you typically see, which would be like your rubber liner for your fuel. That is plastic. That is more chemical resistant. It's going to work with a wider variety of fuels. And most importantly, it's not going to off-gas. Since the truck is pretty much a daily driver and it is routinely in the main garage, it's one of those things. Don't necessarily want to have fuel smells from it. From the old cars, I don't care. In fact, I kind of like it. But on something like this, it would be nice if it was to factory spec, So, like I said, we're going to be cutting maybe 20 inches of this for that loop kind of behind our throttle body, rail to rail, and we're going to see how we like it. Now, I've been cutting my AN line for years with channel lock 911s. I'm looking to get something to upgrade outside of having to go to one of the giant cable shears, which is typically what people use. If I do that, we will do it before our install video where we kind of hit that. But one of the cool selling points, and this is one of the knocks, is either stainless or black. And this you can find at other places, but they do also have, I believe, red, orange, and green. Orange and green of particular interest to many of you, I'm sure. The orange, in fact, we might use some of that on the Charger if we like this. So this is kind of my guinea pig loop here. The black and the blue will work well for the truck and the Duster. Now, obviously, you need special PTFE hose-ins. That's right, there's another variation of hose-ins for you. Push lock, socketless, AN, everything. PTFE, you guessed it, requires its own special end. Now, since we were dealing with fuel rails in this application, this is what we picked up. And it's not necessarily ideal. If I could ever truly get my exact color combinations, if you could pick A and B, your business end and your nuts, if you will, I would be a happy man. Maybe at some point in time this company will expand and allow that, but they do have some pretty cool options. There's a couple other places you can get non-traditional colored AN fittings, but I've still never found anything that would be ideal for me. That said, this should look pretty trick. Now, what this is, their website's pretty easy to use, so they're not necessarily part numbers. You just come in and you would click on PTFE fittings, and you have straight, 45, 90, and 180. We would click on 90, then we pick if we want 6, 8, or 10, which that might be an issue for some of you if you're planning on running big line for your cooling system or a transfer pump type of a deal. Maybe they'll expand in the future. Best I'm remembering 6, 8, and 10, possibly smaller too, but typically I was seeing 6, 8, and 10. So that covers most fuel-related needs for people. But you're going to have the same kind of color options, black, blue, black, red, black, green, black, orange. kind of take it from there. So we opted for the black and the blue, which matches quite nicely. Price point for each of these fittings, $11.97. So again, $12 a piece, $24. Free shipping when you hit the $75 threshold. The catch with this style, which again, you know, I have zero experience yet with, got a couple of interesting notes. Number one, very cool, they've got the hot rod branding. If you like that, if you think it looks good, you can have it featured. If you don't like it, you can simply swivel your nut. So I'm going to go ahead and thread this off. You will note the PTFE fittings have that kind of bell where it flares back out at about 45 degrees, right? And when I take this off, you're also going to see that piece. Now, this would be your ferrule, and this is straight. That's probably not something that you're accustomed to seeing with AN fittings, right? And if you're looking at it and you're thinking, hey, does that slide into that plastic liner? That's exactly what's happening. So in a nutshell, we would have the tape, we'd make our cut, we would slide the nut up, and then we're going to have to peel back the stainless and the nylon, trim the nylon, put this ferrule into place, slip this down. It should be able to tell very easily when we bottomed out, which is good. And then we tighten this up and it gets compressed, right? In a recent KC tool haul, I purchased a set of Stavilla feeler gauges, and the reason I did that is when you tighten this down, you want to have a 1 millimeter gap, and so that's kind of what I plan to do with those gauges, the feeler gauges. Just make sure that I'm installing this properly. Also of note, when you use that ferrule, let's say that we set it up and we decide, you know what, I want to change the fuel rail fittings. I want them to be black. It's going to look better, and it turns out I like these. For example, if we like ditch this titanium look from Deechworks and said, let's just go black, okay? When you take that apart, if you dismantle your hose, you're going to have to replace the ferrule. Now, the good news is the ferrules are readily available. Again, there's a pack of 5. That's how they sell them on the site. You're going to be looking at $8.49, which I think is pretty reasonable. Keep in mind, you shouldn't be replacing your hose assemblies very frequently. You know, it's kind of like I'm getting these to have them on hand in case I do something stupid more than anything. Then moving forward, if I'm getting established with a PTFE, kind of switching everything over, that's when I'd invest. They'll fit great in my little, you know, Stanley storage bins, Plano tackle boxes, the Gador stuff we bring in, the L boxes. The very small, very lightweight, and not a bad looking setup. Now, that's pretty much all we brought in minus one item, and this is because, again, I told you the black and the green and the black and the orange, that's something you're not going to find many places. Alright, and I wanted to go ahead and cash in. Of course, the Charger, Hemi Orange, you know, I'm always looking for something orange, which no one ever seems to make, right? And this is going to let me test it out, get a feel for it. Again, instead of buying like a million fittings and then getting it in and being disappointed, I can check it out preemptively ahead of time. And it's also something I could conceivably very easily use, so I'm not out a ton of money. But the price point for what I brought in, $8.97. That's just a -6 straight fitting. And if I could my thumb to cooperate with the bag here. Everything was bagged individually, which is, again, not a big deal, but it is nice. Worth pointing out. Right there is the orange. Now, it's not obviously like a Hemi orange. It's almost more of like a, I don't want to say copper because it doesn't really look copper, but since we don't have copper here, it kind of passes for copper. If you're catching my drift. If you wanted to call this like penny, whatever. I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on it for the Charger, but we might give it a go. And then the other thing to remember, where this line here has the blue checks, they do have a line with an orange check. The orange check there looks more of like a traditional orange, sort of akin to the Hemi, and we'll see. So this, again, instead of me buying, you know, like $120 worth of fittings, this lets me preview it, feel it out. I'll guinea pig this batch for the truck. If we like it, we'll take it in stride from there. Might be seeing more from this company. Case in point, this isn't necessarily Hemi orange, this PB Swiss grip, right? But it's kind of like a pumpkin orange, and you can kind of see the contrast there. You could see why I would call this penny or copper, but again, if I had a penny or a piece of copper here, which surprisingly I don't, we might make some changes. Right here you got a little chunk of brass there, so it's close, you know. We'll give it that, right? So that is what I brought in from Hot Rod Fuel Hose. Again, it's always cool to find somebody that's kind of doing the same thing you are, and also kind of tends to get pissed off like you do, to the point that you just go over the wall and you literally start selling your own fittings and hose and everything. So I have a lot of respect for that. I really like those types of stories. It's very relatable, and I assume the people behind this are pretty cool, so we've got that going, I suppose. But Hot Rod Fuel Hose, I'll have this stuff linked down below. That orange on the sticker is actually a darker orange than it appears on the camera, but it is what it is. So like I said, we will test this out. If you're interested in this stuff, I'm going to do the walkthrough video, and then you'll see it installed in the Ram Revival when we actually cross over the fuel rails and everything. But again, I am picky with my fuel rail fittings, and the issue is I've always had to work with what's available, because I can't, you know, extrude aluminum and do these things. If I could, I'd have all kinds of color combinations. But typically, like black and blue, you've never seen that, and that's awesome. I've kind of gotten to where I like the nickel finish a lot of times, you know, coupled with the black nylon braid. But we're going to give this a go, see how we like it. Let me know your thoughts on this, particularly if you've used Hot Rod Fuel Hose, or more importantly, if you've used PTFE lined hose, if that's all you use, if you use it for X application, what do you use in Y application. Again, I am planning to come in and try to find a really good cutter for this. I've mentioned it in a couple other videos. I've got some emails sent out. We'll see what we come up with. But I know what'll work. I know what works, but we'll get dull. I know what to do, what not to do generally. The wild card here is that PTFE liner. Like if you're cutting it with a buzz wheel, you do run the risk of possibly like melting and distorting it, because again, it is plastic. But I'm excited to try this out. Always interesting to me when I get to dive into something brand new and foreign. So I'm excited on that front. Again, right here, this little card, that kind of shows some of their different color combinations. You can see, I guess, the red check there. There's a lineup. They sadly did not have the straight blue braid on their website when I ordered. I would probably make use of that if it was available. But with that said, I'll link this stuff down below. Again, the website doesn't necessarily have part numbers, but it's super user-friendly. And on that note, I got to get inside. The card's about to expire. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. Once again, any experiences with the company or PTFE, leave it down below. And on that note, I will catch you back here for more action from the shop.